I went back in the archives and I found something from 2021 that we can directly point to and say this was a moment when Kansas City lost control of its homicide issue. July of 2021. You got to go back to July 8th of that year. And I pulled up the article. I remembered it yesterday as I was watching the press conference with Police Chief Stacey Graves and Mayor Quentin Lucas as they were addressing the media and trying to explain a record year for homicides in 2023 when most major American cities were seeing a decrease in homicides. Kansas City was seeing an uptick and setting a record. And I started Googling this because I'm like, gosh, when did this happen? And it was July 8th of 2021. Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker says KCPD resists new approach to drug crime cases. And this is critical, and it compares directly to somebody we talked with yesterday who has taken a completely different approach to this issue. So Gene Peters Baker wrote 2.5 years ago as the Jackson County prosecutor in a letter to the KCMO Board of Police Commissioners, quote, I am encouraging the KCPD to work jointly with us, the Jackson County prosecutor, in focusing each agency's resources more effectively on violence rather than resisting these data-informed guidelines. So what she's saying here is that she did not want to prosecute drug cases anymore. She only wanted to go after violent criminals. This article from Woke 41 reads as follows. The search for a different way to handle drug offenses began last winter as COVID-19 tore through the community. One reason for the project was to help lower the population at the Jackson County Jail during the pandemic. By the way, another negative, unintended consequence of COVID. Let's have less people in jail because of the possibility that they get COVID and have more dangerous people in the community and on the streets. Great idea, geniuses. Anyway, Gene Peters Baker said her staff conducted a deep dive into the thousands of drug cases sent to her office by KCPD for prosecution. These cases, about 1,400 each year, make up the largest number of criminal cases Jackson County prosecutors handle. She said here in this letter, quote, our analysis showed that our outcomes were not tied to public safety, were ineffective, were expensive, and were racially imbalanced. Therefore, not fairly enforced on this community. There it is. Gene Peters Baker said 2.5 years ago, she doesn't want to prosecute drug cases, well, because they're arresting too many black people. That's it. Case in point right there. Put it out there on the table. Have the real conversation. That's what she said. She used the data. Gene Peters Baker stated in her letter, July of 2021, the data showed, quote, an alarming pattern of racially disparate outcomes in our city drug enforcement. She said 81% of the buy-bust cases involved a black suspect, while the black population in Jackson County is only 39%. Okay? And? I mean, why are we prosecuting drug cases based on the race of the individual? Now, compare this to what Carl Oakman said on this show yesterday. The KCK police chief, who talked about proactive policing, who talked about going after the drug pushers. Because guess what? The people who are dealing drugs, I know this is going to shock you, I say that tongue in cheek, are also the ones who are committing robberies and ultimately committing homicides.
It's funny, as I talked about fentanyl, which was one of our main one of our 4 areas of our violent crime reduction plan. Mm-hmm. And the way we're hitting fentanyl, we're finding out that the same people that are selling fentanyl and your methamphetamine are the same ones that's involved in your robberies, your shootings. So they really don't know which direction we're coming at them. They don't know if we're getting them from the fentanyl side or we're going to be on them from the violent crime side. But either way, they know that we're focusing on them, and they, they're hiding, they're running, and that's what we want.
That's Carl Oakman. We're going after them on the drug side because those are the people who are committing the more heinous crimes. Instead, what did Gene Peters Baker say 2.5 years ago now? We stopped going after people in this town for drug crimes because that's a racially disparate number, and that's not fair. That's not equitable if we're arresting more people of a certain skin color than they are in the county. So just go after violent criminals. Well, hold on a second here. If those are the people who are then committing the heinous crimes and you can get to them before they commit things like murder and you can nail them for drug pushing and lower level crimes, why wouldn't you do that? Who cares what their skin color is? Because guess what? When you look at the numbers in this town of the people getting killed, about 70% of the victims of homicide in this city are black. And the city's, 28, 30% black? So it's more than double the percentage of people who are killed in Kansas City, Missouri are black based on their percentage of the population. They're the ones who are suffering. The black neighborhoods in Kansas City, Missouri are suffering the most from these awful policies. They're losing their lives in these communities. And they deserve as much safety as anybody else. And you have these woke mindsets for these prosecutors' offices, like in Jackson County, who are like, well, we don't want to arrest anybody for drug crimes because, we're arresting too many people of this skin color. And until we start arresting more people of that skin color, we're just going to not prosecute anybody for drug crimes. I'm exaggerating, but that's more or less the mindset here that has permeated Jackson County. And it's a stark contrast to what you heard yesterday on this show from a guy right across the river in KCK, Carl Oakman, who said, we're going after them, and they don't know which way we're hitting them from. Whether it's the drug side, the robbery side, we're coming after them from all angles, and they don't know when we're coming, but they know we're coming, and they know we're prosecuting them. And he has taken homicides from 58 in 2020 to 24 this past year. You have two cities separated by nothing more than a state line on a river who are having very different outcomes, and they are taking very different approaches as well. And one is working and one is failing. And if you had actual journalists in this town who could comprehend that, who could look at the differences, and who could also go back 2.5 years and pull out the information I just pulled out for you on what Gene Peters Baker said in July of 2021 on how they basically were going to stop prosecuting or at least take the foot off the pedal with buy-bust cases and, drugs is low-level stuff, just go after the homicides and things like that, the violent crime. Well, guess what? There's a way to proactively stop that. And you're seeing it work, I don't want to say to perfection, but you're seeing it work with real, tangible results in KCK. Whereas in KCMO, it's been absolutely nothing but an utter failure. 913-408-7957.